Hey everyone, AMR back again with another chess video. So in this one, I think I'm going to be studying some of the chess openings in like the standard theory of how you'd go about moving if you're white versus if you are the black pieces. But as always, if you like today's content, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, helps out a ton. But let's go ahead and see what we can find here. So for our first one, we have King's Pawn openings. So I think I'm pretty familiar with this one. It's pretty much all about trying to dominate the center of the board. For those of you that don't know, that if you establish dominance in the center of the board, you're pretty much establishing early that any type of development from their bigger pieces, they're going to have a really hard time trying to get those pieces moving forward. So here's a brief synopsis of what's going on here. The King's Pawn opening is often considered white's most aggressive option. World champion Bobby Fischer was famously preferential towards this opening move, called it best by test. So black has many options when responding to the King's Pawn opening. Black can occupy the center himself, the symmetrical 1 to e5, which would be this black piece right here, going into a straight head-on to block further advancements from your white pawn. Is good for all the same reasons that white's first move is good. 1 to c5, the Sicilian defense grabs space for black as well and creates an imbalanced position right from the start. Black occupies the center. So black can challenge the e4 pawn by putting his d pawn on d5, challenging him right away, saying like, you either have to make a decision whether or not you want to take me, or if you want to consider that this is nothing and I could possibly take you. Either right away with the 1 to d5, the Scandinavian defense, or only after first playing the preparatory 1 to e6, the French defense, or 1 to c6, the Caro-Kann defense. Black can forgo challenging the center right away and develop his pieces in a different style. Ready to dive in and master King's Pawn's opening? Click here to get started. So that is kind of a like baseline understanding of what King's opening is. I think that I think it has a lot of drawbacks, honestly, because it leaves a lot of interpretation. It kind of opens up the center. If you go ahead and push your pawn to, I want to say this is d5. What'll end up happening, if I'm correct, is if he ends up taking you, you have your queen that could end up taking it, or you could just leave it as is, and then put your knight to, what is that, f3? No, f6, putting pressure on that pawn again to either move forward or whatever, and then you could go ahead and push forward with your c pawn and take, so that way you are remaining kind of in this straight line. You'll be, I mean, I don't know. Then you're kind of even, and the whole opening to me doesn't make a lot of sense. You're trying to develop your pieces and get as quickly as you can to try and castle. And the King's defense seems like a good option to try and counteract the. The Scandinavian defense and the French defense seem like good counters to the King's opening. However, I don't really see much of a true advantage by doing this defense versus, you know, just trying to establish some of your more prominent pieces like your knight, putting pressure on that pawn as well. So let's go ahead and jump over to the Queen's Pawn openings. So the Queen's Pawn's opening. In the Queen's Pawn's opening, black's two most popular options by an enormous margin are 1 to d5 and 1 knight to f6. So both moves make a lot of sense. Each move is clearly desirable from an opening principles perspective, and they each immediately take the e4 square under control, preventing white from dominating the center by following up with 2 to e4. The the 1 to f5, the Dutch defense, is sometimes played with the same purpose. Unlike King's Pawn openings, Queen's Pawn openings are much less defined by black's first move. Transpositions are much more common, and the defining features of each unique opening system under the Queen's Pawn umbrella often only materialize after a few moves have been played. This is likely because, unlike the King's Pawn, the Queen's Pawn is already defended by the Queen when it arrives on d4 on move 1. In a King's Pawn game, threats to each side's E-pawn occur early and often, and play can take on a forcing tactical nature. But in a queen's pawn opening, each side has a little more wiggle room. So looking over here at the queen pawn, I typically like to start off with a queen pawn push and then follow it up immediately with a D to D3, a 1 to D3 push. I just think that that puts a lot of dominance here. Like if you want to go ahead and take in the center, that's totally fine. I'll go ahead and take you. It kind of is like a proactive approach. And then I also like to follow it up with another knight to F3. Sorry, I was hearing a bunch of stuff. And then so if you want to go ahead and try out the queen's pawn opening, we will go ahead and do that here in a little bit. But for right now, we're kind of just going over some of the more generic openings and then other openings. So of all of white's other options, 1 to C4 and 1 to knight F3 are the most common. These openings will sometimes transpose to queen's pawns openings or less frequently to king's pawns openings, but they are certainly unique opening systems defined by these starting moves, which can be learned as well. 1 knight to F3 is often called the ready opening, while 1 to C4 itself is known as the English opening. Other options like 1 F4, the bird opening, 1 B4, the Polish opening, and 1 G4, the Grab opening, are much more committal and will rarely transpose to anything else. Even if you don't plan to employ these rarer first moves yourself with white, it's worth taking a little time to familiarize yourself with how to handle them in case your opponent decides to get creative on you when they have the white pieces. Other rare openings include the Van Geet opening, Hungarian opening, Kadas opening, Ware opening, Mises opening, and the Sodium attack. So I'm not actually sure if I can play that video. Above, but basically what it says is black has several responses. So as discussed in the video above, black has several responses to the king's pawn opening. I'm going to break them down into 3 categories. Black seizes their own share of central space immediately, the symmetrical 1 to E5 of the more double-edged Sicilian defense, 1 to C5. Black strikes at the center pawn with his D pawn. The immediate D5 is the Scandinavian defense, which we talked about a little bit earlier, while playing 1 to E6 or 1 to C6 with the intention of following up with a 2 to D5, constitute the well-respected French defense and the Caro-Kann defense, respectively. Other defenses where black does not seek to occupy the center with a pawn, white will often be allowed to build a larger center, but all is not lost for black, as we'll soon see. Black occupies the center. So this is that one that we were talking about right here. I think this one's called the Scandinavian defense, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, it's the Sicilian defense. So this is just saying, like, is that right? 1 to E5. Yeah. So this one right here is just talking about the Sicilian defense, which kind of blocks the E pawn on white being able to proceed forward. Likely what I've seen a lot happen is one of 2 things. The knight is either followed here onto the C3 square to add more of a support to this E pawn, or they'll go ahead and put one here, one here, one here, one here as their next move. So it's all about depending on what you want to try and gain. And so like a lot of these openings are good for like 1 to 2 moves, and that's pretty much like why they're called openings, is because after you get past the opening, then you know you really don't have like it's an entirely new game. That's where like gambits come into account and stuff, which I think that we can go ahead and cover some gambits as well in this video. But before I do that, I want to go ahead and play a quick game and see how we do with some of these openings. Hey everyone, sorry I took a little break there. I ended up having to go back to my actual job, but let's go ahead and jump into some gameplay here. I have probably time for maybe 2 or 3 games. I'm gonna try and involve some of those openings that we covered, the King's opening and the Queen's opening, but let's go ahead and jump into some quick 10-minute games. So in this one, I'm going to be doing the Queen's opening, obviously, because I'm starting off with the Queen push. I'm going to go ahead and put some immediate pressure on their next pawn there. Now, I noticed that like one of my weakest points so far in my gameplay is not really taking into account the entire board. It's something that I need to get better at, especially just, man, what to do here. So I think I actually want to push there. All right, so how do I want to go about pushing here? So I would think, yep, so he ends up backing off, which I think is actually a pretty smart move on his part. Now, what I could do here, I think I'm going to push forward again and then bait him in to try and come back. Once I do that, I'm going to go ahead and put my, whatever it's called, the knight back into this spot. I'm going to go ahead and develop, let him push this forward. I'm totally okay with that. I think I'm going to go ahead and push this forward. Yep, he really wants the knight, which, whatever, it doesn't really bother me too much. And so, given how this is kind of developing here on the side, I think that it might make more sense if I try and castle to my queen side. I don't necessarily like to do that strategy very often. However, it just kind of seems like our game is kind of taking that approach here. So, right off the bat here, I'm not loving how we have a double pawn here. We do end up having some added support right here, as well as the bishop behind. So I'm not overly concerned so far, but I do need to start developing my other pieces if I want to continue applying this pressure. Okay, so not really sure what that move is supposed to do outside of just making me move this right here. I wasn't planning on castling to the king side anyway, so it's like no hide off my back whatsoever. Now his knight is kind of in this shitty position where yeah, like that's pretty much his only like valid move. Everywhere else I was pretty much going to take, so whatever, I don't really care too much right there. Now here's the question: do I want to start developing my bishop a little bit more? That is the real question. If I move it anywhere else outside of here, I think that it ends up just creating more problems than good. I think that I am good to go in terms of getting my king side or my queen side castling here. Okay, so I don't mind that at all. I think I'm actually going to go ahead and castle right now. Let him take it if he wants. That gives me a free development of my bishop right there. Like, did you really get out of that exchange what you wanted to? For those of you that don't know, it actually has a greater value to retain your bishops over your knights. So if he wanted to take them, like, be my guest, you know, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna like try and tell him how to run his game, but that probably wasn't the best decision if I'm being 100% honest. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna double up on this, and then we're gonna threaten mate. However, he does have this knight here that is being a little bitch, and he needs to move it. Just kidding, of course. But I do want to go ahead and put his piece in a very shitty spot. The only thing that he can do to avoid a checkmate would be to keep that knight exactly where it is, or to potentially move his queen as a preemptive strike. We'll see what he ends up doing here. So he does end up moving his queen, which I think that is a totally valid thing to do. He can't go there because I'll take. Can't go here because I'll take. He can go there, which, I mean, okay. So here's where we kind of get into this theory of the gameplay, and you basically want to understand whether or not I want to push this here. And then what that does is it puts pressure on his knight to have to move because his queen is not supporting it. So one of the two things is going to happen. Well, actually, I think that that's probably the best move, honestly. Looking at it a little bit more in depth here, he no longer can move his queen right there. It doesn't like it'll just get taken by my queen. I think that his best move here to retain the pressure of not being mated would be to move his queen right there. Let's see what happens here. Okay, so he ends up taking with that piece. So how do I want to proceed is the question. I think what I want to do here, I don't like having this blocked. I want to be able to try and advance that piece if I can. So I'm going to go ahead and try and get this open up here. Okay, so here's my fear, thinking about this out loud here. My fear is that he's going to take with this piece, I'm going to take, and then he's got a free shot on the rook right there. But even if he does end up taking the rook, I have another rook here to protect. So I'm not like too concerned as of yet. I think that it is a valid concern regardless though. Ultimately, the reason why I want to move this piece is because it immediately puts pressure on this right here. And then he has, like, his queen's basically getting a little, I'm not going to say trapped, because it's definitely not trapped, but it's definitely not in a favorable position. So let's go ahead and proceed forward here. So now that I was able to do that, I'm trying to think of the best course of action. So if I push this here, if I push this here, this adds pressure to this piece, and then it frees up the file. I think that this is probably my best move, because now if he takes, okay, so again, like, awesome. I'm glad that you're able to achieve whatever you wanted out of that exchange. I'm not too concerned about it. Let's go ahead and put some pressure. So if he moves here, I can take. If he moves here, I can take. If he moves there, I can't take. So I think our best move probably is to put this here, because I can almost take his. It's tough. How do I want to proceed on this? I think we have to go here, if that makes sense. Sorry if I'm covering my mouth. I get in a bad habit when I'm thinking, and I just end up doing that out of habit. I think I'm going to put this here. I think it makes a lot of sense. Got to be cautious of the clock too as well. So now I have support on both of these pieces here, so he can't move either direction. If he wants to go there, that's fine. I just straight up take. If he wants to go there, I take. If he goes there, I take. If he goes there, I take as well. Okay, so now he's putting pressure on my queen. So how do we go about this? I think the best course of action is to actually go here, like this. Yeah, I like this a lot. So if he takes, I take it. I take his queen too. And I actually like my position a whole lot more than his at that point. So it's kind of like counterbalancing. Okay, I mean, it doesn't... I mean, you're just kind of putting a band-aid on it at this point. I'm gonna take you regardless. Okay, so push anywhere. He wants me to back off, and I'm trying to avoid backing off. If I push there, it takes pretty much out of that exchange. Unfortunately, I do think that the best course of action here is probably just to back off my queen. There's just too many situations where he can end up taking me for a ride. Is not great. 420 plays. Let's go ahead and continue pushing here. I think my next course of action is to push this. So that knight is pretty much pinned on that position until he moves his queen. So he needs to be cautious of that, because as soon as he moves that, I'm taking his queen if he decides to move it preemptively. Now he could do this, which if he does that, then I think it's an... I just take with this piece. He could take with this piece. I could take with this piece. Yeah, okay. I've already kind of thought that plan out, which is totally fine. So now he has a free shot at my bishop, but that's fine. I can just put that there. I put this here. So now what? Now I have so many more pieces over this guy. It's all about how am I gonna like checkmate him. Yep, resignation. I called it, didn't I? Like, he didn't really think that through, I don't think. Go ahead and look at the game report. I think that was a very good game on our part. There was a couple of accuracy things that I think I could have gotten better at. I'm gonna guess right around 71. Oh, okay. So I was the white pieces and I had a 79%, which is a little better than I thought. I had 0 great moves. Sounds like me. I had 9 best moves, 4 excellent. I had a blunder, which I'm not proud of. So it actually thinks that this is a blunder. I wonder why. So let's think about this. So it thinks that this is a blunder because I'm guessing. So this is a blunder. What would be the best next move in the eyes of the computer? If I had to guess, maybe this. Yeah, it says this is best. So I'm a little confused now. So it says that that's the best move. And now I have a pin here where I need to get rid of my pieces. Okay, I can see why that'd be a blunder. So let's go ahead and move back. Let's go ahead and push this back real quick, back a space. So it wanted him to go that way. I push up here. It actually wants me to take with the... Are you kidding? Why would I ever do this? This is the best move in this situation. Oh my god, I didn't even see it. It's pinned because of the rook. Oh my god, I'm such an idiot. I need to get so much better at that, pinning pieces. Wow, because he can't take me with the pawn, because if he does, then his king's in check and you can't move a piece having your king be in check at that point. I feel like I'm gonna sneeze. Alright. Going back now. So I think that the best course of action moving forward, I kind of like analyzing these games. I think would be to... If I was the black pieces, what would I want to do to try and... I have no idea. I mean, potentially this. It says it's excellent, which is great. It wants you to push this though. Okay, so if you push this, it's protected by this, so I think that's good. It's just kind of like allowing you to get free possession, or free progression, rather, my fault. And then I would have to think that the next best move, probably this. It says it's excellent. However, it wants you to push with the other pawn. I'm trying to think. This is like one of those computer brain things where I no idea why that would be best. Like, now what? You know, like, do I just push this forward? I think that that's a mistake. Because I would think that putting this here would be a mistake. That's excellent. But it wants the king to get cornered. Okay, so I push this here. A lot of best moves all of a sudden. Now what? Now the pawn can take my queen. So that's why it wants you to do that. Okay? So if I would think that my best move at this point, like, you always want to like set up your moves to where you can add another value. I mean, this is probably a mistake. This is a mistake for sure. Because it's excellent. Maybe my game sense isn't as bad as what I think. I typically think that I am the world's worst chess player because most often I really am. Okay, so I think what it would probably want is to... Okay, what would be my plan if I was the white pieces? That's what I need to think of here. My next plan might be to push this here. And then, you know, make the trade start happening. Because if he pushes that, then what? Then he leaves this open here. I can leave these two pieces like that. Oh no, this is by itself then. Oh. Yeah, that'd be a bad mistake then. Like, watch, this is a mistake. This is a big mistake. I don't know. Oh. Maybe this? This is excellent. It's always good to like try and get some progression. I'm not really sure. Oh, okay. And then so now I'm kind of like in this shitty spot where I have to try and figure out, like, that's bad. Like, look at this thing. But it actually thinks that this is the best. Okay. So I'm wondering, do we just like, do we sack the knight? It says it's good. So the reason why I want to sack the knight is so that way that would make this push here. I could take, and then it would make him take. I could push all the way forward like that, and then we have a really nice check on the king. So I push there. Let's say good. Like, to me, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. Like, why does it matter? Like, why is that best? I don't know. Let's go ahead and jump into another game here. I don't want to waste too much time on the analysis part. I think it is really fun to do. But on this one, I think I'm going to open up with the king's opening. We are the white pieces, fortunately, again. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with that. Okay. It's kind of funny. I ended up playing someone the other day where every move that I did, they were pretty much mirroring the exact moves that I was doing, and they ended up resignating because I was the white pieces and was able to beat them to the punch on most things. That is the one major drawback to trying to copy your opponent when you are the black pieces, because you're always a step behind. Yep. That's a strong move. I like that move a lot. It helps you to get some of this open right here so you can develop to either side. Typically what I like to do, I think it's just because it is a little less movement, if you want to call it that. I typically like to go ahead and just castle to my king side. I think it makes more sense just from like a castling perspective. I try to castle as soon as possible. I want to get my king in a position where they are protected. So I like our position so far. If he ends up taking here, I'm just going to take with my pawn. I really hope he doesn't, because that'd be a pretty stupid move. Go ahead and castle right away. So if he puts pressure right there, let him. Take here. He takes. I push with my bishop, and it's like, cool. Now I have support on both this pawn and that space. So I don't really give a shit. That makes sense. Go ahead and put this here. Let him think that he has a free piece with his queen. But my bishop's right there. It's protecting the spot. Also, it makes him have to move that piece right there. See what he does with his bishop, because he can't go here, he can't go here. So I typically like to take the bishops off the table as quick as possible. I just think that they're too powerful. I mean, I don't know. I like having the support right there, so I'm not going to do it just yet, but it is worth noting that I like the position of it. Okay, so my next thought here would be to push my knight up to there. I think that makes sense. I really like this, this diagonal that we have right here. We're basically creating it really hard for these pawn pushes to come through. His bishop can't go there, it can't go there, and it can't go there. His bishop is really just stuck right now. So I really like where our pieces are. So here's where I have a question of my next move. I think my next move has to be just to retreat. You know, you're probably like, well, why would you do that? I do like to have the ability to potentially put this piece here. For whatever reason, I don't know yet. Just getting it off the back line, I just feel like there's not a lot that the bishop is doing right now by putting it right there. If he wants to move that queen, I am 100% game for that. I don't mind it at all. So now what is our next prerogative? I think I kind of want to get this knight to get out of the way, because I want to put this bishop right there, and then I want to take his pawn right here and then have my knight being that's probably like way too far ahead because we're not at that point in the game. So putting my knight here is useless. It has no value. I think developing my bishop right here makes some sense. I think so. Maybe. I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of thought as to why I would want this, and I'm trying to figure out. Oh, he wants to kingside. Looks like he wants to kingside castle. Or, sorry, queenside castle. He does that. Okay. So now we have an interesting decision to make. Because I just kind of shot myself in the foot without really seeing it. So I think if I take there, my pawns. So I heard from a chess person that you want to keep this bishop at all costs because you're creating that diagonal. So whatever color that these pieces are on, you want the opposite side of the bishop. So I think instead of changing out everything, I'm just gonna move my white bishop. Can I? It's gonna get taken everywhere I put it. Yeah, let's go ahead and put it here. If he takes, I take with my queen. And then that puts my queen in a very powerful position. So he needs to be very careful with his next move. Because if he takes that bishop, I'm just going to take with my queen. Could be a mistake. Probably a mistake. Okay, now I think that was a huge mistake. So now I'm gonna put this here like that. Put him in check. Because what's he gonna do now? So I have this protecting that piece. I'm not worried about it. I can put this here. He takes here. I take. He takes. I take. I'm up on the exchange. But you kind of wonder, like, was it worth it, buddy? And I think the answer is no. So let's see here. Yeah, that's a bad exchange because then it gets advantage. So I think what I want to do instead is I want to put this here. Then he would take, I would take, he would take. And what's the drawback of just putting it there? Well, if I do that, then he just takes with his knight, but his knight can't really do anything after that, so I think the best move is to just trade at that point, accept what's done is done, and move on. Not the best. And now you're kind of in this spot where you have like your knight in an odd position. But on the plus side, now you have this move that you can do. So this is open so far. And then if he pushes this pawn up, then I'm going to put that right there. Okay. Let's see what he's thinking. I'm gonna see if I can. I want to try and sacrifice a piece, or to get his queen to come over, so then I can go. I'm trying to figure out how I can do. Let's see if he pushes here. It's a feeler for sure. I don't think that he's actually going to end up taking that that bait, but we shall see. Oh man, he had me in a very, very, very good bind. If he would have played right there, that puts my king in check, and I either have to. Well, I mean, I guess maybe not. I was thinking a little bit too much into it. I think what I want to do now. I'm gonna put that there, sacrifice it, grab this here. Now I put a fork on his rook and his queen, if he takes. Yeah, I like this. I gotta be very careful of the time here because I could easily time out right now. So here's the biggest advantage. If he drops this back, sorry. Okay, what? He just takes my knight? Bruh. Okay, well, that fucking sucks, right? Can I ever do anything fun? Like, why can't I have anything nice? Okay, now I got my thumb up my ass. It's gonna drop back. I hated that. Now he's got a free pawn right here. Sucks. Okay, and he's just gonna take my other knight. Cool. This is quickly turning into a resignation type of a game here. His knight is now pinned. Can't do anything unless he moves his king. Which I think he's already moved his king, so I don't think that castling is even an option at this point. Okay. So I think it's here. Make him have to decide what he wants to do with this. What I'm not in love with is now I just gave him free access to, or I let him become aware that he can put this here, putting a nice little fork on both of these pieces. Let's just hope he doesn't do that. This guy, man. I think the move has to be here. This is like free right now. Need to support that. Okay. Not sure what happened there. Could have just gotten sick and tired of having to have that piece sit there, which, yeah. So now that he did that, we can go ahead, put his king in check. I mean, trade this bad. He's got material on me, so I don't think I want to trade, but what are his moves? Drop this back. That's a free pawn. Damn it! I have 1 minute and 53. So I need to use my time very wisely here. Yep, he did what I thought he was going to do, and he put a nice little fork on my knights and my rook. I think what's done is done here. So now he's going to do this. Take. Now I think it would be wise to push this piece here. This is looking ugly right now. Not gonna lie. I think I need to start getting my king out. This isolated pawn is not doing me favors right now. Takes. Okay. So now that knight is pinned. Okay. That piece is free. She's not the same. She's such a rare type. She's far from plain, at least in my eyes. She said if I cross her, I'll be in the grave or yonder. You just start picking. Yeah, that's still my babe. I love the fact I didn't let her go. She loves the fact that I just let her know. Now we're together, it's a different mode. I think he just moves this. I only have 1 minute here, so at best I think that I end up getting a timeout on his part, but at best he doesn't take under 1 minute now. Now we can move that knight freely. Okay, he doesn't. I'll put it back. Gotta be careful here. He takes with the pawn, then he just takes me with. Oh man, I am really good at chess. See how good. I'm basically playing for him to make a mistake at this point. That might have been a mistake. Could play for a stalemate. Damn, I wanted to resign with 0.1 seconds left. So let's go ahead and look at our game review here. I already see that we have about 7 blunders. Yeah, this game was really hands. Hi, let me walk you through your shit gameplay. Yeah, so he had 24 best moves compared to my 10 best moves. Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to blunders and mistakes. I had 2 compared to his 1, and I had 8 mistakes compared to 5. He had 5 inaccuracies, so I'm guessing that's probably just in the end game, a little bit here, a little bit there. It's kind of crazy that he didn't have an opportunity to win in the end game outside of the actual checkmate itself. But yeah, I mean, really, like right here in the middle, it was just. So as always, if you like today's content, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Helps me out a ton. But I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.